Welcome everyone to the latest edition of StateScoop's Government Technology Webinar Series, brought to you today by the folks at Informatica. I'm your host, Jake Williams, StateScoop's Manager of Strategic Initiatives. Today we're going to talk about transforming the digital citizen relationship, and we'll explore how states are leveraging master data management to improve citizen experiences while engaging with government. We'll also touch on how effective data management can effectively reduce waste, fraud, and abuse, and ultimately increase the quality of life for citizens. Joining us today are three IT thought leaders who've tackled some of these issues firsthand and have kindly agreed to share some of the key lessons they've learned. I'm pleased to welcome Dewand Neely, the somewhat newly appointed Chief Information Officer for the state of Indiana. Glad to have you here, Dewand.
Thanks. Glad to be here as well.
Also joining us today is Informatica's Monica Mullen. She's the Principal Solutions Marketing Manager at the company. Thanks for being with us, Monica.
Glad to be here. Excited to talk to people.
Absolutely. And finally, I'm happy to welcome Mashariki, the Chief Analytics Officer for New York City. Great to have you here with us, Amen.
A pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot, Jake.
Absolutely. All right. So I also want to welcome our audience, including those joining us live today and those tuning into the archived on-demand edition of this program. And of course, I'd like to thank Informatica for making our program possible today. Before we begin, I'd like to help our audience get familiar with our console and how they can participate. On your viewing console, there are multiple application widgets you can open and adjust in size to enhance your participation, including a Q&A window. We invite all of our listeners to submit your questions to our presenters during the webcast. We'll try to answer as many of these during the live webcast as we can, either during the presentations or toward the end of the program. You can also download a copy of today's slide deck by clicking the file in the Resource List widget. And if you don't see that on your screen, click the folder icon at the bottom. You can expand the slide presentation window on your screen by clicking on the Maximize icon on the top right of the slide area, or by dragging the bottom right corner of the slide area. If you have any technical difficulty at all, please click on the Help widget. It has a question mark icon, and it covers these common technical issues. Finally, an on-demand version of the webcast will be posted one day following and be available online for up to 90 days. So if you have colleagues who might benefit from today's presentations, share the link you received with your registration email with them. And with that, let's get started. So Dewand, you've been working on ways to improve how your organization uses data to drive the citizen experience. Tell us a little bit about what the Indiana Office of Technology has seen with this, and maybe some of the big takeaways you've learned.
Sure, no problem at all. Thanks. So I've prepared here just a kind of a quick overview of two examples in specific areas where we are using data to make the online experience better for our citizens. And then I was going to wrap that up with kind of the impetus and how we were able to push towards this new era and engaging the digital citizen. So what I'd like to discuss first is the in.gov portal that we have here in the state of Indiana and kind of its purpose and how it came about. We did the creation by leveraging some of our revenue-generating services that were currently on the portal, and we used that to purchase common tool sets, common content management systems, and analytics for state consumption for all the state agencies to give a consistent look, feel, and approach for providing services to the government, to the citizens of the state. The cost savings there with standardizing on some of those services were what helped drive agencies that had shrinking budgets, helped giving them opportunities to utilize what's provided there, and then also introduce some new tools with the content management and gov delivery and analytics that typically weren't used as much in the past. Also with the in.gov portal, we introduced a kind of a governance council piece to make sure that decisions and approaches are best practices and are a benefit of the state. And those councils still exist today. They are put in place in order to facilitate changes that are made to the portal, the future of the portal, future tools that will be acquired, and to make sure that those things are the cutting edge and are in a direction technology-wise of where we need to go. Also included with the I9Gov portal was the research we used to, I won't say justify, but to better align what our thoughts were according to what the citizens really want. And so through an exercise of design thinking and research, we were able to find that the assumptions we made on the way users react to the I9Gov portal and react to the consistent look and feel across the agencies, and then the services that they want as far as determining what should be on the front of the page, whether it's to renew a license or whether it's a specific website. We gathered that research to help present the best I9Gov presence for the citizen possible. The next topic is, why did we have these goals for the I9Gov portal? And one of the bigger pieces that came out of the research was the assumption we had, and is that the citizens don't really know, nor do they really care which agency provides a service. Sometimes as longtime employees here in state government, we sometimes lose sight of that and may need reminders of that. And so that led to a remapping of the entire navigation with simplified categories, and then also using analytics to make sure the most searched upon topics and the most wanted topics were right up in front and ready there for the citizen. The homepage itself was driven by analytics, and that comes through gathering the clicks and the searches from all the citizens and making sure that information is moved to the proper areas and easy to find. And then also the myn.gov, which is a kind of a personalization setting for the users where they can create their own profile and they can set up a number of alerts and events that they want to know more about. And that can be based upon locality, using hyperlocal repository of state information. They can use authorization from Google, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn, and select agencies that have the interest that they're interested in. And then news and events from those agencies are displayed as part of their profile. They have the ability to manage their subscriptions in one location. They can also monitor different things like travel conditions through a travel advisory app. And we've recently added some information related to local school performances that are based off of the location that the citizens may be in. And all this is kind of driven from enabling more data to be available for the users there. Another goal and objective an example we've done to sort of break down these data silos and to better embrace or empower that digital citizen is something that we are informally right now calling Business One Stop. And it is a joint effort between 3 different agencies at the current moment. And it's for streamlining the customer experience for businesses wanting to do business here in the state of Indiana. So currently, to do business, you have to talk to at least 3 different agencies with 3 different sets of procedures and policies. This will streamline that process into one engagement for the business and have everything they need across the 3 agencies in the one area. It's also going to increase our agency efficiency. That will allow agencies to empower that citizen and give them more self-service opportunities, which in turn will reduce the workload on the agency. And it also gives them an opportunity to collect and share better better data and better high-quality data at this time, since it's kind of a new approach here. The last aspect that kind of went into the project was really more of a risk management or risk assessment, as far as always being sure that we're securing whatever data we're capturing and sharing across the agencies, and then a risk on the ability to make sure we can scale once the demand increases to the levels that we hope it does. And then this is just a quick kind of a vision and future scope for the project. The goal is to here, once the first 3 agencies can see a success and we can gauge the demand, then the plan for the next phases will be obviously to add other agencies and other services based upon demand and needs and wants from the citizen themselves. Just kind of the challenges that went into developing this type of project really is just the challenge of thinking outside of the box, thinking of better ways to capture how new businesses and how these new business owners want to interact in a digital aspect with the state of Indiana. Obviously, the other challenge is getting that data sharing going across the agencies as we need in order to make a kind of a one-stop shop approach. And then also setting a consistent method and framework as we add additional agencies down the road, making sure they each come in a consistent and procedural framework that meets the need and will create that same experience over and over, no matter what service is being added to the shop. And then this is just a kind of a preliminary mock-up of what we see kind of the informally named Business One-Stop homepage looking at. So now that I've talked about just kind of the several examples that we're doing to better embrace that digital citizen, this is just a little history here on how we've gotten to where we are. And it basically started with the executive order by our governor in March of 2014 that specifically asked us and required us as a state to share our data and to also formalize it by creating what we call a management and performance hub. And this requires that all state agencies to participate in our hub by providing specific data and information to allow us to use more data-driven decision-making. This executive order also came with a sponsorship that includes, besides the governor's office, it includes our budget office as well as the state CIO position here in our Office of Technology. And initially, what the order brought to light for us was it allowed us to create a better transparency site for our citizens and give them better visibility into the contracts and procurements that our state was doing. So they had that information, and then the offshoot of that type of exercise has led us to other solutions, such as setting better key performance indicators for us internally as agencies to measure and hold ourselves accountable. And then it's also led to better and more collaborative projects similar to the Business One Stop, your IAN.gov portal, and other projects of that sort. Thanks.
Thank you, Dewand. That was really cool. I always turn to the Management and Performance Hub as one of the cooler initiatives in state government. I mean, it's a really cool way to bring everything together and everyone all under a single structure and in a cool place. So thank you for that, Dewand. I appreciate your input there. Now we're going to move to Monica. So Monica, at Informatica, you guys are working to develop solutions for people like Dewand to streamline that citizen experience as that customer experience continues to change. Tell us a little bit about your experience with that and kind of what you've learned along the way.
Sure, I'd be glad to, Jake. Thank you very much. So for those who don't know Informatica, we are a data management company focused on all things data, and we make great data ready to use. So a challenging area that we find of data management is with customer data, and whether that customer is a consumer, a citizen, or a business, right? Data about customers is found across many, many different systems, with many, many different versions of what that customer looks like. So getting that single view is a challenge. And if those systems aren't updated, they quickly become out of sync, and people stop trusting the data they need to make decisions, right? So I'm going to kind of go through quickly what happens. Why does bad data exist? How an intelligent data platform with MDM, or master data management, at its core helps solve that bad data problem, and then just quickly go through a few examples and then a few guidelines to help understand what to look for in this type of a solution. So data is constantly changing, right? It degrades. It's dynamic. And there was a study done several years ago which resulted in a statistic of around data changing at an average of 27% a year. People are changing jobs, companies open and close, people move locations, companies move locations as well, bankruptcies declared, people get married. All of this thing is happening in a very dynamic basis. And the same study estimated that if you did nothing at all to your data in 3 years to improve its quality, your data would be in complete chaos. And the data that is used to support these decisions becomes fragmented, inconsistent, inaccurate. So what happens then is that, return mail costs skyrocket unnecessarily, and you can't be certain that you've reached the individuals that you need to. Or without being able to reach them, your customers, whether they're individuals or businesses, may not be aware of what programs or services are available to them. They can miss out on important changes that affect them, or they may miss out on critical communications, such as emergency services or even tax and revenue changes. When your customers do interact with an agency, the person that's trying to help them may need to access multiple systems to find the information that they need, or worse yet, they may need to call them back with an answer, which delays resolution. I think that's why some of these management hubs are coming into existence as well, right? Automated processes that transfer data and rely on the consistent transfer of data between one agency or program to another may break down because there's an inability to match the incoming data with existing data. Or the data looks different in one report than another, and decision makers find that their data is in conflict with other data. So they either can't trust the data, or they may make flawed decisions based on flawed data, which is even worse. As for the public's expectations, they expect similar capabilities with the public sector as those with the private sector. They're connected, right, through websites, social media, mobile devices, and other sensor-enabled devices. And this creates a great opportunity to reach an audience, but you need to understand the context of how and why they interact with an agency as a basic element, but that can be complicated if multiple systems are involved. For example, if somebody interacts in person, then switches over by phone or email or vice versa. They want convenience, right? And as a public, we want to find information about programs, and we want to get those answers quickly. We want to interact when and where and how we want to. And we leave digital footprints, adding to the explosion of data that's not only about citizen wants and needs, but also about how they want to interact with government agencies. Lastly, the public can become easily disengaged, tuning out if they aren't receiving value in the form of efficient and effective government, and move quickly from being an advocate of an agency or a program to a critic. And it's really difficult to understand why things can't be done or are done in what seems to be an archaic manner. I think Amazon clearly sets the bar for that level of customer service and convenience. So these characteristics mean that more is expected of everyone. State and local governments need to examine how they securely manage their data to deliver these improved services and programs. And to meet its mission, each agency needs to be able to easily find and trust the data that resides in the applications and the analytics that are used to fuel interactions with individuals and business customers, as well as make multiple decisions. So an authoritative data set allows public sector decision makers and employees to improve and shape public policy based on customer needs by understanding best practices, risk factors, and being able to identify the most impactful programs. They can shape healthcare outcomes with better insights. They can ensure consumer and citizen protections, for example, tracking clinical trials more reliably, detect fraud, waste, and abuse by uncovering wasteful spending, implementing do-not-pay programs, and detecting financial crimes, and ultimately interact across agencies and programs for the betterment of communities by providing this 360-degree view of benefits and services, cross-agency intelligence, data management, and streamlining procurement processes to maximize discounts. The challenge then is overcoming an agency-centric or system-centric view where sharing information is tricky because the same individuals or businesses may look differently across different systems and databases. So it becomes a fragmented view of an individual. And that makes it difficult to answer even questions that seem simple, like, are you a customer? Have you used or are you using a specific service or program today? For example, as a law enforcement organization, should we even know you, right? Or which services across the state or local agencies are you using? How often are you using them, and where do you use them? Which programs are you eligible for, and do you even know about them? And then finally, when do you become eligible, or when do you stop being eligible? And when you want to find the answer to those questions, you realize that the data is often scattered across multiple systems or agencies. It's out of sync, fragmented, incomplete, or inaccurate. So valuable time and money is spent trying to find the answer you need while fixing the problem is usually addressed in one of three ways. And what we found is the three ways are solving it by implementing a new application that promises to answer, get the answer that's needed, but usually stops there and doesn't address the data issue. Or we try to manage the data manually, right? We offload it from the different systems that have it, put it into a spreadsheet, review it, update it, correct it, but usually that doesn't then go back into those source systems. So we end up doing it again the next time somebody asks for a type of analysis or an answer that we need. Or we fix the data once a year, we outsource it, and spend a lot of money getting it correct to clean it up. But as soon as that effort is completed, remember that survey, the data has already started to degrade. And so it's fixing the symptom, but it's not fixing the problem, which is the process itself.
Remember, for more information about New York City government services,
so
311 or
when
NYC.
So I'll just go through three examples of agencies in education, healthcare, and justice that started by rethinking how they manage their data and implemented an intelligent data platform that can automate much of that data management effort. First, the state of Colorado created a single view of the customer, or a citizen, and initially targeted education by breaking down siloed databases. This project was funded through a 2009 Student Longitudinal Data System grant, and the grant required data sharing across multiple departments and agencies to support data-driven decision-making. That followed an individual from childhood through higher education and into the workforce. The state started small and plan to extend the technology to create a backbone to the Colorado information marketplace. And to do this, they had to overcome two distinct challenges. They needed to design an environment with an identity resolution service that would enable seamless data sharing across multiple state agencies and commissions, and be able to identify, cleanse, and join citizens across these disparate data sets, which vary in quality, have data gaps, which make that identity resolution difficult. The solution they selected was based on the unique ability to search, discover, cleanse, link, and mask data across the different sources. The state of Utah wanted to create a comprehensive view of healthcare cost and quality across episodes of care that was used by policymakers, the public, and healthcare providers. In this case, Utah State Legislature funded a sophisticated all-payer database as an important element in furthering healthcare reform. The challenge was to create a more simplified view into a health system they believed to be broken by government regulation, archaic and complicated payment systems, and a lack of transparency regarding cost and quality. The state needed technology that combined high-level encryption to ensure privacy and highly efficient data linking capabilities. They used identity resolution technology to rapidly and accurately match enrollment and claims records with existing individuals. And if no match exists, they create a new identity. LA County merged a criminal history system of 200 million records of interagency integration across its judicial, law enforcement, and probation systems, so they could accurately locate criminal records both within the county and also within the state of California. The challenge was to create a real-time central repository accessed by law enforcement officers, court officials, and prosecutors for fast, accurate accessibility and delivery of criminal records. The system needed to not only overcome data entries by law enforcement officers and return the right criminal records, but also find the right match despite nicknames, aliases, and monikers across volumes of criminal history while simultaneously ensuring officer safety. They needed scale, fast response times, and an ability to detect patterns and linkages in the data. You could imagine how challenging that was. These agencies and others recognize that to succeed in meeting the public's needs and to be able to make better decisions as expected, they had to rethink the way that they manage their data so they can be more efficient and ensure the programs they're implementing are more effective. With a secure and strategic platform that's designed specifically for data management, the public sector can spend less time chasing data, connect the dots within their data, identify best practices, gaps, and needs more quickly, and spend more time taking action. So what does today's data management platform look like that creates clean, safe, and consistent data? One that breaks down the data silos that stop or slow down decision makers and make agencies appear, sorry to say, ineffective, sluggish, and slow. By utilizing an intelligent data platform that consists of data integration, data quality, data as a service, and master data management tools, you can connect customer information, multiple transactions, interactions, and even machine data to the business applications and analytics that are used to support and protect the public, identify fraud, waste, and abuse, and shape policy. First, they find the data they need that's found in multiple CRM, ERP, operational, legacy, and other systems and connect to it. They apply data quality rules that are business-based and designed by the business to ensure the data is complete and accurate. They match and merge the data using a trust framework that confidently applies intelligence to determine the most trustworthy data source when there's conflict between multiple systems. The data is enriched with publicly available third-party data where possible. It's validated through a data as a service process, applying the validation rules at the point of entry, whether that's a system or an online portal, to eliminate data quality at the start. Then the individuals that exist are discovered and mapped within the data. And lastly, it's important that data continues to be proactively managed and governed on an ongoing basis. And once that data is transformed to trusted, authoritative data, that same data then fuels the applications and analytics, often the same as the source systems that provided that initial data. We have identified 10 list of top 10 to help in the evaluation of selecting a data management platform. Number 10, starting at the bottom, ensure it's a tool that's configurable and doesn't require coding. Learn from past experience. Number 9, start small and expand. Your data is going to be dirtier than you expect, particularly if you don't have an active and strategic data governance program already in place. Data quality is a process, not just an objective. Number 8, select a solution that has an intuitive user interface that is designed for business users as well as data stewards. And establish trust in data by knowing and tracking the history and lineage of the data. Where did it come from? When did it change? Number 6, select a master data management solution that supports operational and analytical MDM. Ensure that it includes basic data quality elements. If you don't have a separate data quality solution, that might be more robust. Number 4, make sure it's architecturally flexible and can fit in future environments. Number 3, it has the ability to identify complex relationships such as complex business hierarchies or extended families and networks. Number 2, it supports multiple business entities expanding from a single domain such as customer or program. And lastly, it has a flexible data model that conforms to your operating environment. So just to close, this is really about rethinking the way you manage and share data that's critical to your mission. As a friend of mine used to always say, person with one watch always knows the time. A person with 2 watches is never quite sure. And if you consider that master data management is sort of like an atomic clock, with an atomic clock, right, you're always confident that you have the right time, and that's what master data management promises to deliver with clean, consistent, safe, and connected data by consolidating it across multiple data sources and from agencies, programs, and channels, validating and enriching that data, and proactively managing it on an ongoing basis to fuel the analytics and customer-facing operations with the information that you need. So thank you.
Thank you, Monica. That was a great analogy there at the end with the atomic clock. That's really interesting. And then the numbers at the beginning of the cost of data management problems, staggering, really incredible. So, all right. So now we're going to turn to New York City. Let's turn to Amen. So Amen, with a large enterprise like the City of New York, the data ecosystem across agencies and departments is obviously incredibly complex. Tell us a little bit about how you're navigating that in the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Jake. I'll first start off by saying that the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics, which is led by myself, I'm Mashariki, the Chief Analytics Officer for the city. We partner with the Department of Information, Technology and Telecommunications, as well as the Mayor's Office of Technology and Innovation, which are the city's CIO and the city's CTO, respectively. And so as this triumvirate of technology leadership for the city, we work together to bring strong, robust solutions to bear for New Yorkers. With that being said, MODA, which is the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics, MODA, we partner with agencies to translate data-driven insight into action. Right? And so we work to identify data that appropriately represents the features and the complexion of the urban landscape. And a simpler way to say that is we identify the haystack, and then we go in partnership with agencies, we go looking for the needle, right? And so the way we look at things, our sort of ethos, if you will, or unwritten sort of strategy about things is strong data, simple algorithms always trumps limited, low fidelity, bad data, and more complex algorithms. That's the way we think about things. And so our general mission is to provide actionable insight for the New York City government. We support more effective delivery of services to New Yorkers for greater equity, safety, and quality of life, as well as we grow advanced analytics throughout the city. And so this next slide is really sort of a hodgepodge, big mash. Jake, you referenced the complexity of New York City. This shows you sort of all of the moving parts. And our role, Moda's role with respect to data and analytics, is to try to manage and where we can minimize or make more efficient those moving parts. And so what this shows you are sort of all of the stakeholders at the top, that is the civic community, City Hall, the mayor on down, as well as city agencies, the executive branch. And then what you see at the bottom are sort of all of the data sources that we employ and technologies and capabilities that we employ with which to provide data-driven insight to leadership, city leadership, as well as agency leadership. So what I'm going to do is sort of walk you guys through maybe 4 or 5 use cases, because Moda is a user-driven. We only take on projects when there is a particular challenge or problem to be solved. We don't do analytics for the fun of it. We actually never sit around. Well, I'm not going to say never. We do sit around and talk about analytics and cool stuff because that's who we are, but we never take on analytics projects unless there is a stakeholder, an agency, mayor, the first deputy mayor comes to us and says, here's a particular city problem. So we don't create problems. We don't create solutions looking for problems, right? And so I'm going to walk you through a couple of projects that we work on and give you a brief overview. So the first one is measuring success. And so we partner with, like I said, we always work with an agency. We partner with the Small Business Services, which is an agency here, to create an end-to-end measurement to quantify effectiveness of new business processes that will ultimately inform future policy decisions, right? So Small Business Services plans to use time to open metrics to measure their effect on the ground. So time to open is essentially when you're an entrepreneur and you decide, you know what, today's the day I'm going to start my business here in New York City. There is the first instance that you have a touch point with city government, right? Because there's all sorts of permits and licensing and all sorts of things that you need to get in order to open up your business. Your first instance, your first touch point with the government all the way until ribbon cutting, how long does that take? Obviously from the city's perspective, the less onerous and the shorter that is, the better. And so in order to make that and more efficient and make that time shorter, we have to measure it. And so previously, there was no baseline measure for this process prior to this project that we took on. And so what this process does in terms of data, it leverages Department of Building permits and job information, the fire department's range hood inspections, as well as Department of Health and Mental Health restaurant permitting info, and all sorts of other data sets. So there's an instance where we use citywide data that's available via agencies in order to drive a solution for a particular agency. The next one is proactive education, right? And so this project informs on-the-ground operations completed by SBS in order to educate small business owners regarding compliance, right? And so this particular project integrates 3 separate sources of violation tribunal data into one template. So the idea is that we are tracking violations that have been given to New Yorkers, and we're trying to understand exactly where those things are happening, where the violations are most likely happening. Because this will drive where Small Business Services will do outreach in order to educate business owners into compliance. Because again, the idea is that if you're a small business owner, you don't have much resources with which to get your business started. You certainly don't have resources with which to continuously pay fines and so on and so forth. And so the way that we, as the city, want to spur small business and drive that economy is to minimize the number of violations we get out. And how do we do that? We provide a targeted mechanism for small business services to do training and to do education, right? And again, this is, violations that are usually given by multiple agencies. The next is the Small Business Services online portal. And so MODA, we work closely with the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunication to drive these exchanges. So when you talk about, that first slide that I showed you was this ecosystem of information. We provide a way for agencies to share data with each other. We refer to it as data share, essentially, right? And so we didn't spend much time coming up with that name, clearly. And so this data sharing mechanism is a way for all of the agencies to share data with each other in sort of a pub-sub web services mechanism. And so this portal is going to take full advantage of that sharing mechanism by sharing all data that is going to be helpful to allow for a one-stop shop where business owners can view data pertaining to their businesses from across city agencies, which would include licenses, permits, violations. They will also be able to initiate transactions with relevant agencies, and you can be able to launch an agency page with pre-populated data and also obtain valuable information about city programs to help them start or even run their business, right? And so this transforms the way citizens interact with their government into a more seamless, less time-consuming process. It's I can't ever do a talk without talking about how different New York City is from everything and everyone else. But for business owners in New York City, time is money, and so this is one of the things that's very important, is bringing this into a one-stop shop. And this also makes things more transparent and accessible as a single portal compared to a web of searching and clicks. And we'll be able to also quantify this web traffic using data. Okay. And so this next slide is data-driven enforcement, right? And so this was a really interesting project that we took on with housing preservation and development. And the idea is that in New York City, there are landlords who look to harass tenants in order to get them out of their apartments such that they can raise the rent. Specifically, you find that in rent-stabilized units, but such that they can raise the rent and then get more money. And so we're working as part of a tenant harassment task force, which uses New York City data to drive the prioritization of task force inspections by identifying trends and relationships from past cases of harassment. And so one thing I want to mention about this is, I talked about the needle in the haystack. This project right here, this initiative, is really, one, helping to identify the haystack. So New York City, as a city, which is the 8th largest government in the world, right, it's a fairly humongous haystack, and so one of our roles is to make the haystack smaller, so that investigators can be a little bit more precise and successful in their investigative efforts. And so what we've done is help to build a timeline of harassment, which refers to things like citizen complaints, construction permits, and building sales, as well as violations. And so this is as seen, by New York City data systems, right? So this is the timeline of harassment as seen by New York City data systems specifically. And we use data from systems at Department of Finance, Department of Building, HP, Housing Preservation and Development, New York State Attorney General's Office, in order to paint a picture and historically test this model. And so the question is, that we pose in every project we take on, we have an analytics question. Can we understand what drives unit loss in hopes to create a mitigation plan going forward? And so MODA is an important part of this task force, and we play an important role in terms of, like I mentioned, making that haystack, that large haystack that is New York City, smaller and more manageable. And so This next slide talks about the city's open data law, and so we release MODA partners with Dewand to implement the law, and we host a web portal with which, and we work with agencies to release open data, to release public data sets so that New Yorkers can have access to it. And so last year we just released our strategic vision called Open Data for All, where we want to aggressively begin to educate New Yorkers on using the portal and accessing the data such that they can begin to use it to change their frameworks and to understand their government and to have conversations, appropriate and smart conversations with their government. And so the reason why I put this in here is because this next slide talks to you about this ecosystem of data. So no longer is open data going to be different from data that agencies have and agencies use to solve city problems. We are looking at this in an ecosystem where it's just New York City data, and whether it's open or private, all of these data sets will be used to make New York City a better and stronger city. And so this is the ecosystem where you have data that is quality and robust that can be shared with users, whether that's open data users or agency users or city hall users, and they help to identify use cases with which to better use that data, which would drive insight. And analytics teams, whether it's MODA, which is New York City Analytics, or agency analytics teams, can then begin to take those insights and help agencies solve problems. And again, the agencies are the entities that share the data. So it's this ecosystem, this feedback loop that we've been building. And so with that being said, that's sort of the core role and a lot of the things that MODA is doing here in New York City.
Thank you so much, Amin. I appreciate that, and I really appreciate that open data vision, that idea that we need to incorporate the users into the open data process. So with that, thank you, Dewand, Monica, and Amin for sharing those experiences. And just a reminder to our live audience, please feel free to ask some questions of these guest presenters. We've got a couple minutes left. You can use the Q&A widget on your console. And we've got a few questions, so let's try to jump into them now. We heard a lot in this presentation about use cases and some ways that Indiana and New York City are using, in the management of data to make things happen for their citizens. What advice do each of our presenters here have for state or local governments who may just be beginning on moving away from that, fragmented citizen experience toward a more unified one?
I can start off by saying, to not, MODA, we're in a great position in that we partner with Department of Information Technology, so we don't have to concern ourselves with the technology, right? They're the technology, the IT geniuses. Our job is to understand the problem, and so we're the business owner of this citywide data integration. Dewand are the owners of the technology implementation. And so for us, we never go down a road of data integration, data management, building out data solutions unless we have a problem in hand, unless we have a particular citywide need in hand, right? The conversation doesn't start with, well, what cool tools are there with which to integrate data? The conversation starts with what is needed to make New Yorkers' lives better. And I think that's always a good place to start.
Yeah, this is Monica. So I was just going to add to that. We find that in a lot of our customers that we work with as well, that it's aligning to the business need, understanding what the business is trying to solve, what challenges are they faced with. So when you consider something like, as basic as a customer name of General Electric, right? I mean, how many different ways can that even show up in a database across all of the different things? So if you're trying to understand, what's the presence of, say, General Electric in a city, what types of real estate do they own, just even understanding are they listed in one database under General Electric, another under the General Electric company, another under GE, and understanding how to bring all of that data together to solve that business problem, to understand what policies to implement or what decisions need to be made.
Great. Anything from you, Dewand?
Yeah, I'd point back to, I think it was slide number 9 I had with the executive sponsorship. It's grabbing that leadership from the top and leveraging them to help create that innovation and kind of set the tone. That's really here for the state of Indiana. That's really helped our efforts tremendously, knowing that we have that support and it was put in order. And that saves a lot of the back and forth and the, kind of the struggle and fight. We found that it can't be led simply by IT. It's got to have kind of like that meat and buy-in from the top down.
Absolutely.
Hey, Jake?
Yes.
Jake, this is Can I add something just to be, somewhat provocative?
Yeah, please.
I do think that while I absolutely agree, and as you know, Jake, in my previous life I was the CTO at a federal agency, and I absolutely agree with what Dewand said. I will say now in my role at MODA, which we function as a small startup, sort of scrappy, agile entity, a lot of times our successes have come when the leaders were focusing on bigger fish to fry and all sorts of other things, and we were left to sort of kind of drive from the bottom up. And so while I think a lot of times it is always best to get executive sponsorship and leadership, I think oftentimes if you're just a small team, small data analytics team or a small city team, there are ways you can go and get some big ROI and then get the attention of the big guys to take on the bigger stuff. But there's things as a small scrappy team that you can do to kind of get out there and make and be impactful.
Great. Thanks, Simon, for bringing that up, because it actually segues perfectly into a question we have from our audience here. And, exactly right, Dewand, it sounds like there was a top-down initiative there in Indiana to use these tools and adopt these practices. But, as Amin just said, do you guys think, you being all of the presenters, do you think that this can be done by moving agency by agency adoption and kind of working through master data management without mandates?
I think this is Dewand with Indiana. I think we have a few agencies here that are more forward thinking and more innovative. That would be quick to partner with us to jump on that. And I would say that would be the minority. That'd be your 20%. I think we would struggle with the remainder of the agencies.
Interesting. Monica, did you want to weigh in on that at all?
I'm sitting here thinking about it. I think it's going to vary state by state, right? At the state and local level, I think there's a lot more ability to be nimble and agile and implement technologies like MDM to innovate faster than, say, maybe at a federal level. But it has to start with a business problem and a business pain. And if they're not feeling that business problem and business pain, then I think it's going to be slow moving. So I do think agency by agency, starting small, finding ROI, talking about the business value, enlisting an executive sponsor, and growing from there is a great way to start. But, in state, the structures are so different that, it may take longer.
Well, and actually, that's a great time to bring in Amin here. I mean, Amin, I know you talked about this a little bit, but as you mentioned, you do have that federal experience. How are you? What's different about your scrappy startup approach at MODA to how you're addressing this problem? How does that make it different?
Well, I think one of the things is we offer at MODA to bring these agencies along, not just a solution, but a suite of solutions. So Dewand is absolutely right. Like, there are going to be some battleship agencies, and you can imagine here in New York City, sometimes it gets entrenched as some of these agencies here in leadership, but there are going to be some battleship agencies who just, are being productive, but incrementally productive, right? And so how do you take them on? You don't say, well, all or nothing, right? So what we do in MODA is we say, listen, even if it's at the very least, you've got some big analytics organization knocking on your door, selling you the next big thing, the next, cold fusion, and you really don't have the resources with which to kind of kick the tires, call us. We don't have to do an analytics project for you per se. We can actually sit in the meetings and say, yeah, that makes sense, or no, that doesn't make sense. They're selling you, poppycock. Like, we can play that role. We can also come in, and if you already have a strong analytics team and you guys are doing some stuff, we can come in and plus up your team and add value to your team and bring additional toolkits. So if they're thinking about solutions with, just, linear regression algorithms and probabilistic fuzzy matching, maybe we can add additional technologies and capabilities, maybe around machine learning and so on and so forth. So we can also plus up your team, but we can also come in and take on projects as a sort of a consultancy. And so that was the major difference is here we're able to be what we need to be in order to be impactful. And the federal government, I think there are laws, regulations, and policies, there's a Klinger-Cohen Act, and there's all of these things that define who you must be and the role you must play, right? At MODA, what's different is we can become any and everything that we need to be in order to engage these agencies and bring them along. Like Dewand said, some come along faster than others, but they all have to move, and our task is to engage them all. And so we can't leave, it's the way I would look at it is walking to the park with a group of students. You want to get to that park and make sure every student gets to that park. Some may stop and smell the flowers, other may try to climb the gate, other may try to walk across the street and so on and so forth. But your job is to help shepherd them, all of these students, to the park. And you can't leave any behind. And so we find all sorts of innovative ways to engage these agencies in whatever way we can.
Great, I appreciate that, Ahmed, and I think that's a great note to kind of end things here. So Dewand, Monica, Ahmed, I thank you so much for sharing some of these essential lessons that you and your organizations have learned with our audience today. I appreciate all of that. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Jay. This was fun.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jake. No problem.
Absolutely. And I just want to thank our audience again for tuning into StateScoop's Government Technology webinar series. And, of course, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Informatica again for underwriting today's program. A reminder to the audience, you can download a PDF copy of the slides from today's program by clicking the file on the resource list widget on your console. And our program today will be available on demand for the next 90 days, beginning on January 20th. So if you have colleagues who would benefit from today's presentations, please share the webcast link you received with your registration email with them. It's free, so consider sharing what you learned. And you can find more of our news coverage on all things data analysis and management, as well as a bunch of other topics relevant to state information technology at statescoop.com. And again, I'm Jake Williams, and on behalf of all of us here at StateScoop, thanks for being with us, and have a great week.